What's happening, Raider Nation? Today I'll be going over realistic draft options for the Oakland Raiders at the number 4 overall pick. First up, we have Nick Bosa, edge rusher, 4.3 end from the University of Ohio State. Many consider him to be the top overall prospect in this year's draft, but there is a slight possibility he's around for Oakland at number 4. First up on the clock is the Arizona Cardinals. Most people think it's a lock that they go with Kyler Murray to lead the air raid offense with Cliff Kingsbury. Second on the clock would be the San Francisco 49ers. There is a possibility that they go with Quinnen Williams. He clearly was the most productive player this past year. At number 3 would be the New York Jets. They're more of a schematic fit with Josh Allen. They run a 3-4, so they need a natural outside pass rusher that can stand up. That's clearly Josh Allen. That's what he did in college. Thus, leaving Nick Bosa available for the Raiders at 4. Back in 2017, he was a first-team All-Conference. 34 tackles, 15 TFLs, 8 sacks. And get this, he only started 4 of 14 games. This past year, he only played in 3 games because of a core muscle injury. But in those 3 games, he accumulated 14 tackles, 6 TFLs, 4 sacks, a forced fumble. Some of his strengths are he's got a relentless motor. He's just like the Energizer Bunny out there. He just keeps going and going. He's also a great technician. He's got moves on top of moves and counter moves. He's like a karate master up there. Quick hands, precise movements, knows exactly what he's doing. He's got great functional strength, and that appears in the combine reps as well. He's also a difficult target for offensive tackles to punch, lock, and stay in front of. He also has some experience in the 3 technique in the nickel back in 2017. Some of his weaknesses would include he's not as fluid as his brother, Joey. He's got tight hips on film. He also doesn't have a lot of production in tackles. However, his biggest concern would be his injury history, as long as with his brother's injury history. It just runs in the family. Some might wonder how much better he can really get as a pro, because he already knows all the tricks of the trade from his brother and his family. From a measurable standpoint, Nick Bosa measured in at 6'4", 266 with 33-inch arms. His brother Joey measured at 6'5", 269, 33 3/8 arms. Khalil Mack, 6'3", 251, 33 1/4. And Von Miller measured in at 6'3", 246, 33 1/2. Now from that standpoint, his arms qualify for long enough to disengage. That's good. His weight is right around at his brother's, who's a traditional 4-3 pure end. Khalil Mack and Von Miller came more as 3-4 outside linebackers, but in today's day and age, they pretty much just rush to quarterback, hands in the dirt, or standing up. Doesn't really matter. All these guys are elite pass rushers in the league. That's why I wanted to compare him with Bosa. Now, when you look at the testing portion, Bosa with the 4.79 40-yard dash. That's way lower than Joey, and in between Mack and Vaughn, and that's good. Bench press 29, strong as an ox. That's really good. Broad jump at 116 is fine. 3-cone 7.1, fine. Right around the same range as everyone, except for Vaughn, who's just twitched up like no other. 20-yard shuttle 4.14. That's really good. Good change of direction. Good out of the box. Vert 33 1/2. That's good. So as you could see, like I mentioned earlier, above average numbers to average for his size. If you compare him to the elite, he doesn't have the elite testing like a Khalil Mack or Von Miller, but definitely plenty enough to get it done if you compare him to his brother and other traditional ends in the 4-3 system playing that 5 technique. Next up is Quinnen Williams, interior defender, 3 technique or 5 technique in the 4-3. Quinnen was a first-team All-American, started 15 games as a sophomore, 18.5 tackles for a loss, 7 sacks, as well as a safety. I believe Pro Football Focus had him rated as the most disruptive, causing interior defender this year, and I believe in the last several years. He's really great at short area quickness and burst. He's a great technician with his hands. He understands formations and film study and uses that to his advantage with IQs to shoot in gaps. There is a little bit of concerning. It would be his overall mass and holding up as the zero technique, which is over the center. But however, that's not really what you're going to draft up this high for. If you're going to draft someone in the top 5, it's to get off the quarterback. So that'd be a 3 technique or the 5. So that shouldn't be that big of a concern. And when you look at his body, he's going to put on more weight, more muscle. He looks like a baby. So can't be concerned. I think he could develop eventually into the zero technique. But as of right now, it's not really what you're looking for out of him. You're looking for him to get after the quarterback. A lot of player comps to Quinnen Williams. I've seen Jonathan Allen, 17th pick in the first round from the Redskins. Fletcher Cox, 12th pick overall from Philly. And Aaron Donald, pick 13 from the Rams. How they measure up measurably wise is Quinnen was 6'3", 303, 33 and a quarter arms. Allen 6'3", 286, 33.58 arms. Fletcher Cox 6'4", 298, 34 and a half. Donald 6'1", 285, 32 and 5/8 arms. So with those numbers, you can see Williams weighed in the heaviest, which is good. And his arms, you know they're long enough considering Allen's got the same, Donald's got less. He's going to be good, and that's good for disengaging offensive linemen, shedding blocks. That's where that comes in, so that's good to see. When you look at the 40-yard dash, Quinnen was 4.83. That's moving for a guy his size. That's moving. Vert to show lower explosion, 30.5. That's solid. Broad jump, 112. That's upper echelon, elite. That's what you want to see. So that's a good standpoint for him. So from a measurable comp standpoint, it looks like, he's an upper echelon for what you're looking for in a 3 technique for what we see in today's game. Next up, we have Josh Allen, edge, 4-3 end, Kentucky. Really exploded this year. Was named first team All-American. Had 88 tackles in 13 games for 21.5 tackles for loss, 17 sacks, and 5 first fumbles. Really stands out as his elite traits. A real leader. Can really get off to the quarterback. And he can cover tight ends up the seam, but with the Raiders scheme, he's going to be getting paid to get after the quarterback. He's got great first step quickness. You just see explosion. He's a turnover machine. That's a really key thing I see about him. He always goes after that football. However, he does lack some technique. Overall hand usage is not really there. And he doesn't contain necessarily always the best. But he's got all the traits, and he's what you're looking for in an edge rusher for the 4-3 speed rush. He can provide that. He's a turnover waiting to happen. I decided to compare the measurables and testing of Josh Allen, Von Miller, Khalil Mack, and Bradley Chubb. Josh Allen measured in at 6'5", 262 with 33.5 arms. Von Miller, 6'3", 246, 33.5 arms. Khalil Mack, 6'3", 251, 33.25 arms. And Bradley Chubb, 6'4", 269, 34-inch arms. So when you examine those numbers, Josh Allen has got quality length and good weight. He's only lighter than Bradley Chubb, heavier than Von Miller and Khalil Mack. And then when you're looking at, how they did at the combine, you see that Josh Allen had 28 reps. That's really good. 4.6, 340. Faster than Bradley Chubb. They're pretty similar players. That's fine. Broad jump 118. That's still fine. Cone drill 715. Way faster than Chubb. If Chubb can get it done, so can Allen. And 20-yard shuttle 423. Faster than Chubb. Not as high as Khalil Mack or Von Miller, but those guys are Hall of Fame players. So that's all right. And he's close enough. He's very elite from the measurable standpoint. So he's got no limitations there. And that's why he was so effective without so much technique. With a good staff to teach him technique, his potential could be limitless. Next up, we have Ed Oliver, interior defensive lineman, 3 technique. He can also play the 5 technique from the University of Houston. Comparing Ed Oliver measurably, he's 6'2", 287 with 31 and 3/4 arms. Compared him with Jonathan Allen, Fletcher Cox, Aaron Donald again. Jonathan Allen 6'3", 286, 33 and 5/8. Fletcher Cox 6'4", 298, 34 and a half. Aaron Donald 6'1", 285, 32 and 5/8. So as you can see from that, he's closely related to Aaron Donald. He does have inch shorter arms, which is critical as a defensive lineman because you want to disengage blocks. Don't let the offensive linemen get their hands on you. So that is a little concerning. That's kind of what I mentioned with the functional length, lack thereof. But, Aaron Donald gets away with it. Obviously, Aaron Donald's a freak, but so is Ed Oliver. When you look at how he tested, mostly at his pro day, and we'll get into that now. Oliver was clocked in at his pro day at his 40-yard dash from anywhere from 4.71 to 5. I'm going to go somewhere in between. Let's say call it 4.79, 4.8. So that's going to be good. Checks that box. 32 reps. Plenty. 3 cone is what really stands out as well. 715. That's pretty damn good. And then the 20-yard shuttle is just ridiculous. 4.22. That's, I want to say, was up there with people like Deshaun Jackson, who's a receiver, and like 180 pounds. And vertically, 36 inches. He's just a freak. Basically, he's the closest thing we've seen to Aaron Donald. And you see those numbers. That's what gives you hope that he can translate to the league as a 3 technique, being explosive upfield and just taking advantage of his pure explosion. Lastly, we have Devin White, linebacker, LSU. Devin White is a modern-day sideline-to-sideline linebacker. Those skills translate from his high school days when he was a 2-way star and played running back. Back in 2017, he really broke out as a player. He led the SEC in tackles with 133, 14 TFLs, and was named second team USA Today All-American. Continued to meet expectations in 2018. Finished with 123 tackles, 12 TFLs, 3 sacks, 6 pass breakups, and 3 forced fumbles. Some of his strengths would be he's an elite coverage guy. PBU machine, can stick with the running backs out of the backfield and tight ends up the seams. He's got great muscular build and balance, legs, upper body, neck, shoulders. He's able to shoot through gaps to be disruptive with that speed, and being a former running back, he can often see the lanes. He's got oily hips in coverage, really good in space, and he's a very good turnover creator. He sees that ball there, he will go get it, rip at it, do whatever he can. Some of his weaknesses would be not the greatest elite of instincts, like Roquan Smith last year. And definitely not compared to Luke Kuechly, who's maybe the best linebacking prospect we've seen in the last 15 years. He can be fooled with counters and fakes. That's because he's just super aggressive. He likes to use his speed. He can be pushed back. Gets a little high from the running back. The running back usually falls forward on him. Just needs better technique at disengaging. But you can learn that. But from an athletic standpoint, he's everything you need and what you want, sideline to sideline, today's day and age. as we look at Devin White from a measurable standpoint, we'll compare him to Tremaine Edmonds, Roquan Smith, and Luke Kuechly. Tremaine Edmonds was the 16th pick, Roquan 8th in his draft, and Kuechly 9th. Devin White was 6 foot, 237, 32 and an eighth arms. Tremaine Edmonds, 6'5", 253, 34 and a half arms. Roquan Smith, 6'1", 236, 32-inch arms. Luke Kuechly, 6'3", 242, 31-inch arms. So as you see that, he comes in at a good play weight, right around Roquan, Luke. Long enough arms, longer than Luke, right up there with Roquan. At 6 foot, he's, good enough. 6 foot's fine. So that's good from that standpoint. Now, when you look at how he did in the 40-yard dash, blazing, 4.42. That's that sideline to sideline speed. 22 reps. It's good enough. That's plenty. Broad jump 118 is fine. 3 cones 707 is right up there with Luke, which is great. Luke's the premier middle linebacker, drafted in the last 10, 15 years. 20-yard shuttle 417 is good. Invert 36, right up there with Luke's 38. That's what you want to see. So from a measurable standpoint, he's everything you want from a linebacker in today's day and age. After a decent free agency with filling out holes, I imagine the Raiders will try to take the best player available on the board or trade back a little bit to still acquire that player. So I think Bosa would probably be number one on the board. As I mentioned earlier, that's unlikely that happens. Next up, I would imagine Quinnen Williams is sitting there at number 2 on their board. There's a pretty decent chance he's available there, so Quinnen Williams is probably the most likely pick for where they're at. Then I believe Devin White is the next person highest on their board. There was a report out from Matt Miller that said that they're in love with those two. Now with him, as I mentioned earlier, the value of the linebacker, some of the best in the league were taken 9th, Kuechly, Roquan 8th. The other young guy, Edmonds last year, was 16th. So if you took Devin White at 4, it'd almost be kind of unprecedented. And so from a value standpoint, I would imagine that they would kind of want to move back if they were going to pick him. Now the tricky part with that is he's rumored to be the Bucs' number 1 option at number 5, so that might not happen. Next up probably would be Josh Allen, the edge rusher from Kentucky. I'm actually probably a little bit higher than most people on him. I think he has the potential to be like a Khalil Mack. So out of those players, I think Quinnen Williams is the most likely for the Oakland Raiders. Thank you. Subscribe.